John joins us now. Well, it's wonderful to see you.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing right now?
I'm doing fine. I'm coping, I think, you know, learning to live with it. I think I'm fairly pragmatic about it. There's no point in being miserable. Dear Len used to say to me, no point in being miserable or trying to change something that won't ever change. Well, it won't ever change. I mean, Parkinson's is here with me now for the rest of my life. Best I can do is try and control it and take the advice of all the experts I'm talking to.
When did you suspect that you might have it?
About 2 or 3 years ago, I started with a tremor. I went to see a specialist and he said he didn't think it was Parkinson's. It was a thing they call a benign essential tremor. I said, how do you get that? He said, we haven't a clue, but if it gets worse, come back. So I went back and, of course, he did then confirm. That was about 2 or 3 months ago. I went back and he confirmed it was indeed Parkinson's. And I also had other symptoms as well, difficulty swallowing, handwriting going. You find yourself writing in tiny letters that no one else could decipher, feeling fatigued a lot of the time when I wouldn't do otherwise, you know. And, of course, the voice. The voice has lost a lot of its resonance, so I have to speak loudly. I've got a speech therapist who's helping me a great deal, teaching me to speak more loudly. See, he's shredding now. Rich is shredding to hear what I'm saying.
No, I can hear you perfectly well.
It's OK in situations like this normally, but sometimes if you go somewhere where there's ambient noise, like a pub or a restaurant, which I am occasionally prone to, as you know, Susanna.
Or a football match,
or
perhaps.
A football match. You struggle sometimes. People are constantly saying to you, sorry, what did you say? It's very frustrating. And sometimes they say, you repeat yourself and they say, oh, yes. You know, they haven't actually understood what you've said. They're just trying to be polite. But, you know, you learn to live with it.
Is it the first thing you think about when you wake up, and is it the last thing you think about when you go to sleep?
It's often the first thing I think about when I wake up, because, like, getting dressed, because of the tremor. The tremor is one of the first signs. I didn't mention that, did I? Like, mine's not too bad at the moment, but things like putting your shirt on this morning takes a lot longer than...
What, doing the buttons up?
Doing the buttons up, yeah. Like that. My mother, as you know, my mother, we mentioned that my mother had it. She had difficulty peeling a potato or opening a can. Domestic things like that, which are irritating, but, you know, can't change it, so learn to live with it.
Parkinson's is one of those conditions where science hasn't really progressed in terms of treatments.
No. They are experimenting all the time, though.
Experimenting all the time. So what are you benefiting from? What is the current medication and does it help? How does it help?
Well, I'm on a course of tablets called dopamine, which help with Parkinson's.
Because that replaces the dopamine. One of the significant things about Parkinson's is you lose this huge amount of dopamine in your brain.
You've done your research, as ever. Yes, absolutely.
So there's a replacement drug for that.
And so far, I've only been taking it for like 2 or 3 months. It's controlled. It's not getting any worse, so we'll see how it goes.
What about physical therapy? You say you're having speech therapy. I mean, I just want to point out that while you say you believe your voice has lost its resonance, I would say you haven't lost anything. You still have a beautifully resonant voice.
Thank you.
Your voice might have changed, but I don't think you've lost any of your...
It has changed. And also, I've got to tell you that a lot of friends of my generation are going deaf, although they won't admit it. So it's not all my fault.
No, exactly.
I'm shouting across a bar. I've told you once.
But Susanna's right. If I was listening to this on the radio, I wouldn't know what you were talking about in terms of losing resonance, because I think I recognise that voice.
You still sound like John Stapleton.
I can maybe restart my career, Richard. I'm only 78 after all.
Absolutely.
What about when you consider what happened to your mother? Obviously, that informs, you know, your whole view. In what way?
That's why I knew what I got. It was no surprise when the neurologist said to me, "You've got Parkinson's." I knew it anyway. So.
Yeah, I bet.
And my mother, it was very sad to watch. I took her to the hospital in Kingston, where she lived, many years ago, and the guy said straight away, "Yes, it's Parkinson's. It'll take about 5 or 6 years to set in fully," and he was spot on, right? And she went from being a very lively, ebullient woman. You know, she was the more joyous of the two. My dad was a lovely guy, but quiet, you know. To being someone who was really prisoner in her own home, because her limbs got very sore and stiff, and she used to have all sorts of problems, like, as I say, peeling a potato, opening a can, and also hallucinations from time to time, which I never worked out. I don't know whether they were the drugs she was taking or the condition itself. I never got to the bottom of that. She'd come up with some of the most amazing stories of things that had allegedly happened to her.
That hadn't happened.
It was hard to keep a straight face sometimes, God bless her. But, you know, weird. Anyway, but, you know, it was sad to watch and sad to, you know. So obviously that's a prospect I don't relish, but, you know, I've got it, so get on with it.
I was going to say, when you, if you like, look into the crystal ball and look ahead, what kind of prognosis have you got?
Well, it remains to be seen how good the drugs are, basically.
Right.
I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible and think on the bright side, you know, make the best of it and lead as normal a life as possible. I don't know is the answer to that, Richard. I know people apparently who've had Parkinson's for years and cope perfectly well.
Yes.
And there is hope out there. And I would advise anyone to take advice, you know. One of the reasons I came out, as it were, this week with my son, Nick, was it was Nick's idea. He's up in Scotland recording his scam interceptors program at the moment, otherwise he'd be here, I'm sure. It's his idea to talk about it because people don't talk about these things, or not often enough. No. Men in particular are bad at talking about illness, aren't they? You know, Susanna.
Yes, I do. And
go and see a doctor. Oh, I'll be fine, don't worry about me. You know, and I know it's not easy to see a doctor, but if you have any doubts, go and see a doctor or get in touch with Samaritans UK, a charity I'm a patron of. Because they got all sorts of support and advice from people that you wouldn't dream of.
I think you're an example of how the difference in how we approach these conditions between the generations has changed so much that there was a shame that led perhaps your mother, other people's parents with this condition to withdraw and retreat and not be able to share their emotions about it. Whereas we're in a different time now.
We are.
You know, you're able to be totally public and accepted and embrace what's happening to you positively rather than let it beat you down.
And I have to say, Susanna, the response of the public since this was announced on Monday has been absolutely overwhelming. I've spent the last 2 days doing nothing but answering calls and messages, lovely messages from people. Very flattering too, some of them, you know. To the point where I thought they've got the wrong guy, they're mixing up with someone else.
What have people been telling you?
Exactly. Oh, just how fond of me, to put it bluntly. I wish I never knew there was such a well of goodwill out there.
No, you must have known.
Well, I sort of did, but I'm trying to be modest.
OK. Well,
doesn't come easy,
can I just add to your slight embarrassment then? I used to watch you...
when you were at school, I know, Rick.
No, it's more than that. On Nationwide, that's when I first became aware of you, when you were a Nationwide reporter and presenter. And you inspired me to get into television.
Thank you.
I used to watch you and think, I want to do what he does.
Well, mine was Mike Parkinson, because I went to college in Manchester, opposite the Granada Studios. St John's College, opposite Granada TV, and I used to see Mike Parkinson going in there every day, doing a programme called Scene at 6:30 in the Northwest.
Right.
So that's what I want to do. And he became a distant, but a very good mate, actually, Mike. He's a bit of a mentor of mine.
So he knew that he'd inspired you?
He knew he'd inspired me, and he didn't like being reminded that I used to watch him when I was doing my A-levels. But
I hope you don't mind me reminding you of my favourite moment of us working together.
Go on, then.
And that was when my dress split, live on air.
Have you got some VT?
And you... And you were sitting right next to me.
Dig it out.
Actually, I have a feeling it happened during an ad break, and I had to nip out.
You did.
Oh, you mean we don't have the clip?
You very valiantly tried to help.
Thank you,
but unfortunately, the zip had gone.
It was only valour, I promise you.
John, it is wonderful talking to you.
Pleasure.
It is brilliant, and what you are doing in being public about it will help so many.
Well, I hope so. Well, I know the response has been very positive. And
I wish we could.
I hope we would encourage more people to think about it, talk about it, and think about their future, because that's what I did with Nick. We're talking about what the future holds. You know, will I have to have a stair lift? Will I have to get some kind of care?
Plan for it.
You've got to address these things, you know.
Totally. And stay positive. I mean, I know I don't need to say that to you, because you're so clearly positive.
As long as I can still watch Man City, that's all I care about.
Get your priorities right. John, it's really good to talk to you.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Good to be here.
Look, if you've been affected by any of these issues that we're talking about here with John, then, as always, there's advice and support at itv.com/helplines.